Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's City Council meeting. I would say at the outset, this is a much better looking group than we had at the last meeting.
Thanks.
I told them the same thing about the one before. Somber note this evening before we get started and before we conduct our traditional moment of silent reflection. Sean Tucker, who's for the better part of the past year has been battling cancer. His sister just posted on Facebook a couple of hours ago, and I'll read this. This is from his sister, Melissa Tucker LaPlatte. Hi all, this is Sean's sister. This is a tough update, so I'm taking over for Adrian. Sean will be going home tomorrow on hospice. He's fought hard, but the complications are too much, and there isn't anything left for his medical team to try. In light of this, he decided he would like to go home to spend his last days with his family. Please do not say anything to his children, as Adrian will be talking to them once they are home. Visits will need to be cleared with Adrian first once they are home as well. If you have any questions, you can message me through Facebook. Thank you all for being Tucker tough and loving on our family this past 10 months. We truly appreciate it. Let's keep the Tucker family in our best thoughts and prayers tonight. Thank you very much. And our special guest of the night, who we'll introduce more particularly in just a couple of minutes, Bill Nicholson, would you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of the Flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of the neat little things I get to do every other meeting or so is to recognize folks who have done great things for our community. And back in October, the City Council resolved that we would start on about a monthly basis recognizing people based upon their service to our community. And tonight's Best Award honoree will be Mr. Bill Nicholson. So if you would join me up front here, I've got something I'd like to read to the group and present you with. We'll go right over here so that when these lovely ladies take the pictures, Bill, we're right there under the city steel mural. Whereas the Council of the City of Buckhannon resolved during its regular meeting of October 18, 2018, to honor from time to time residents of our Buckhannon Upshur community who perform extraordinary service while embracing the kind and giving spirit of volunteerism. And whereas Buckhannon has long championed community service and has recognized persons who have given selflessly for the benefit of our city's fire department, Stockard Youth and Community Center, and police department, but had not until recently formally recognized others who generally perform many other acts of service and kindness. And whereas with the 2018 establishment of our Buckhannon Volunteer Center, the City Council deemed it to be reasonable and appropriate to henceforth recognize our community's most giving volunteers with previous honorees of the Buckhannon Exemplary Service Testimonial Best Award being Amanda Hayes, Zachary Muchler, Robin Keogh, and Shirley Tinney. Now therefore, I, as Mayor of the City of Buckhannon, pursuant to the power and the authority duly vested in me, do hereby proclaim as our city's 5th recipient of our Buckhannon Exemplary Service Testimonial Best Award for February of 2019 to be Bill Nicholson. Mr. Nicholson has been a substantial contributor to a host of service organizations, including the Upshur Parish House, Appalachian Impact, the Kiesling Mill Lions Club, the newly formed Buckhannon Kiwanis Club, and additionally, Bill Nicholson has long served as a referee for Upshur County Youth Soccer, is an active parishioner at Chapel Hill United Methodist Church, and is a long-standing member of Buckhannon's Band of Brothers. If there is a call to service in our community, you can count on Bill Nicholson being among the first people to volunteer. I direct the establishment of our city's new Best Bench and installation of a permanent placard in Jawbone Park to forever honor and recognize Bill Nicholson and all honorees of our Best Award. I further urge all residents to join our city's most honored guest, Bill Nicholson, his family, friends, and admirers, and me, along with all members of our city government family, during our public ceremony to be conducted at 7 p.m. on Thursday, February 21, 2019, as we bestow our city's 5th Best Award. We also wish Bill Nicholson all of the best as he continues his tireless work, benefiting so many in our community. May every resident be mindful of the importance of community service and giving of oneself, and be inspired to give selflessly for the benefit of others, as we pay tribute to the many substantial contributions of our exceptional volunteers, including our 5th Best honoree, Bill Nicholson, and this is given under my hand and the official seal of the City of Buckhannon, February 21, 2019. Bill, congratulations. Appreciate all you do. And you've got the floor if you'd like to say anything. Words of wisdom to these young folks who may be duly inspired by your efforts.
No, I don't know about that. I come from a long family of service. Number one, I serve the Lord. It is to give back, to honor Him. So therefore, I do that through these organizations, people in need, feed the people, and take care of them. The only thing I can say in a young person, and all people, number one, I don't have time to volunteer. I hear that a lot. You hear that a lot if you lead a group. I've never lost a moment volunteering. I still travel, I still hunt, I still fish. But I still do when they call.
We appreciate you.
David. David, can I say something real quick?
No.
How about it, Bill? Can I say something?
Go ahead, Dave. You got it.
I met Bill probably over 30 years ago when he was a ref, and we had some funny stories. You probably remember some of them.
Some of which you can't tell, probably.
Well, no bad reflection on Bill, but on maybe some other people. But I would say since I have known him and his family, he's contributed probably well over 10,000 hours of volunteer work. I mean, that's hard to imagine, but it is really true. And he's also, his rest of the family has helped oftentimes too, but he is probably one of the best volunteers this community has ever had. So I just wanted to say that. I've seen him do it.
Yeah. We thank you again, Bill.
Thank you. Dave.
Keep up, keeping up, as they say. Thanks so much.
I'll tell the stories after you leave.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, Bill.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it'll be. It's always just a Jim Dandy of a time. Our first non-agenda guest who signed up to address council, we're going to hear from Dennis Cordes, who's going to tell us about these national accolades that Post 7 American Legion just got. Right. So lay it on us, Dennis. Tell us all the good news.
This is. I'm just going to summarize this. You've all got copies there, even you, Dave. Unfortunately, I didn't put it in Braille. I don't have it in Braille. My apologies. But this is an article from the National Adjutant in Indianapolis describing how Post 7, this Post 7 here in Buckhannon, was instrumental in getting patriotism classes taught in grades K through 12 statewide, every school system. If I can, the patriotism classes, which are what is mandated for teaching, depends on the age of the students. Examples include recognition of Veterans Day, Memorial Day, President's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Flag Day, and Patriots Day. Reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, singing patriotic songs, creating art that demonstrates patriotism, participating in community service projects and parades, and how to show respect to the U.S. flag. This reflects on Bob Post. You know, most of you know Robert Post. He was the chairman of the Americanism Committee, and this came out of his committee, the resolution. Passed the Post unanimously, had to wait a few months to go to the district. District 3 only meets twice a year. It passed unanimously. Went to the state convention that year, and it passed unanimously there. The article describes how then it went to the state school board, and that superintendent of the statewide school system at that time said, this is a good idea, and implemented it. So you can thank Bob Post for this event, for this curriculum.
Well, there were several others also.
Yes, Mary was adjutant of our post at that time. Could you tell us who the other members of the committee were?
Yes, there were post commander at the time, Leslie Shreve. Sherm Baxa was on that committee. And there were, I forget the guy's name. Anyhow, doesn't matter. There were many people from the Board of Education here in Upshur County that were on that committee. And some delegates that were in office at that time that really helped it throughout the state. And they're the ones that got the contact at the Capitol to get in. Okay.
I don't have any.
And the post was recognized there by the governor and received a really very nice reception.
That's outstanding.
And that was a couple of years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the best part about this is it's like here in Buckhannon, you know, we plant that seed about volunteerism, community, everything. That's what this has done. Now, throughout the state of all the United States, we've got requests at our post. They want a copy of our resolution.
Wow.
So they don't have to start from scratch.
That's awesome.
And we'll be certifying those and sending them out first thing Monday. So.
If you would get me a copy of that,
I
I'll
will.
provide it to Callie, and when she does one of her PR things, we'll
I'll get you
we'll
that. I
get
have
some
a package.
mileage for our own here.
Yeah.
And I got to, what is our Board of Education? Sarah.
Sarah Steinmetz.
Sarah. She was, her school
Union, yeah.
was always doing this, always. And but now most of the schools, like in Rock Cave and the other little schools, it's everywhere here. So it's a good thing.
Oh, couldn't be better.
Yeah, and it goes right in with our banners,
Yep.
Walk of Valor.
Yep.
You know, and it's just wonderful.
Dennis, we appreciate your service and Mary's service and the service of all of our veterans.
This also ties in with the 100th anniversary of the Legion this year.
Of American Legion.
American Legion,
American
yeah.
Legion, yes.
Not the
100
foreign
years.
Legion.
Formed the, well, I want to make sure
American
we weren't talking
Legion.
about post-7, but the year after.
We were chartered in June or July of 1920.
We're the,
Seventh post ever chartered.
Wow,
yeah.
one of the oldest.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
That doesn't mean that we're
Thanks,
the oldest.
thanks
for
for
your time.
reminding us about this. And, we'll help facilitate getting a little more recognition through the city website. So,
Thank you, Dennis.
thank you much.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dennis. Next up is Buck Edwards, representing Create Buckhannon. Buck? That was a heck of a dinner last Friday.
That was a good dinner.
That was a good dinner. I don't know who made that prime rib, but it was pretty good.
I just cut it.
He says it's not prime rib. Everybody I talked to says that's the best prime rib I've ever had. He says it's not prime rib.
I'm going to say something about Bill real quick. I grew up in Gilmer County where Bill did, and I went to school with his brothers and sisters and knew his parents, and they were a great family. And Bill has come down and worked on one of our projects last year down in Clay County. So he's a go-getter, and I was really happy to see him do that.
Thanks for telling
A
us.
couple years ago, I came to you about wanting to build a rose garden down at the college. The college had given us a piece of property down there to do that. And I was really gung-ho at that time to do that. And I'm still really gung-ho about doing that project. And we're going to do it because if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. But I've got way too busy right now to get that project going. And it's a very labor-intensive project, but it's something that I have a passion for, and that we're going to do that probably next year. But I can't go without a project. I kind of get bored when I don't have one. So today at Create Buckhannon, we started talking about making our town, a destination to where people would want to come and see our community in the springtime by planting redbud and dogwood trees. More spatially at the, we would start at the exits coming off of Route 33, Route 33. And plant those in those open spaces there. I know we have to go to Department of Highways to get their permission, or at least to run it by. And then bring them right on down Route 20 where you're putting the water line in there now. I've already planted some stuff in there over the past couple of years, daffodils and tulips, but would love for folks to come to Buckhannon just to see our trees in the spring.
Sure.
And I think that if you go to a lot of other communities in the more urban areas, they use those to really outline and to highlight certain areas in their community.
Sure.
And it's not that labor intensive. The street guys would probably not be real happy with us by planting a lot of trees out there, but that's okay. We can work with that. But I think it would. I think that it would make a destination and also identify us as a destination to where you'd want to go, if nothing else, just to see the trees.
Would the cost be borne by folks that wanted to sponsor a tree? Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking, that we would sell those trees by sponsorship.
Yeah.
And Laura and I was talking about possible some grants through the agricultural department to do that, but
Well then, Buck, you could maybe, at a place or two downtown, I'm thinking like by the city seal mural or down in John Glenn Park, have a list of the folks who have sponsored trees. Because there's not going to be too many that are going to go tree by tree to find a little placard, but if we had a list that we could put in a couple of places.
that's a great idea.
We'd recognize them.
That's what we did with the first round at Jawbone Park.
Yeah.
Just put a list up
Yeah,
of
exactly.
who did it and who it was in honor of or memory of.
Yeah.
We did it that way.
Yes, if you've ever been to the cherry blossom,
Yeah, in Washington?
that's just a spectacular, breathtaking.
Yeah.
I don't know why we can't do that here. Just can't do cherry blossoms, but we can do red bud. And
Let's connect you with Rob Barber and Jerry Arnold, and we'll figure out a plan. And it's already almost the 1st of March. It might be tough to affect too much this year, but it gives us a whole year to plan, right? I mean,
Right.
the planting season is fast approaching.
It'll take that long to get permission.
Yeah, from the state.
Yeah.
Today.
So today I had Jay Holland print off the maps, pictures of the intersections, so you could take them with you. And there's contour lines to show where it's steep and
that big high wall where you get on 33 there to go towards Elkins would be a great place. You can turn that hillside purple.
Yeah, it's kind of ugly.
And they don't mow it. So,
And dogwoods are my favorite tree.
Let's make a plan. We'll get everybody together, including yourself, of course, and we'll try to make this happen.
all right.
Does that sound like a plan, folks? Any questions for
you
Rob?
don't have to make a trip
Maps are being delivered. It's official now.
one step at a time, right?
Thank you.
Thanks, Buck.
Thank you, Buck.
Another project, first off, project.
Okay.
Laura Meta is with our Convention and Visitors Bureau. Laura?
You said it right the first time. Metters.
Metters.
Appalachia.
Lara Metters.
Way to say it.
This is what happens when you drink before the meeting.
You should have information in your packets, but we're requesting an agreement to be entered into to where we can have the Buckhannon City Police provide security at the event center whenever we have alcohol being served. Right now, it's a state requirement that if alcohol is being served, that we have to have security on the premises, just to handle any possible situation. we've been using the city police officers, and it's been a great relationship with everybody. But, you know, it hasn't been a very formal process, so we're just trying to tighten things up. So you can see we have a proposed contract. I emailed a copy to Tom O'Neill. I don't know if he's had a chance to look it over.
Laura, I don't know if he has either, but why don't we do this? I'd like to hear from Chief Gregory
Sure.
and Amby Jenkins to make sure that we're okay from a liability insurance perspective and things like that. But let's start a discussion by bringing F4 under strategic to the table in advance of our otherwise strategic part of our agenda. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Thomas and a second by Mr. Skinner. Is there discussion on that motion to bring F4 to the table? Hearing of the need for no discussion, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. F4, under strategic, caption, discussion, possible vote, Buckhannon Police Department providing security to Brushy Fork Event Center. That motion is now on your table. Let's discuss it. Chief Gregory, do you want to weigh in on this? I mean, is it, if you tell us, oh my God, don't do that, I suppose we'd have cause to maybe not do that, but what do you think?
The city police officers have, for many years, going back to, I was a patrolman several years ago, worked informally on the side for whenever certain entities have needed security. Certainly the event center has been one of them over the years. The college has been another when they've requested security at events like concerts and things like that. So it's usually been an informal arrangement between the individual officer and the entity requesting the security, and they're paid directly. They have been in uniform, and in many cases they have been in a city police car. As we have been exploring the CALEA process over the last little over a year now, one of the, and as you know, there are many standards that encompass accreditation, one of which addresses what's known as extra duty employment. CALEA breaks down employment into two branches. One is secondary employment, the other is extra duty employment. Secondary employment is any job where you do not anticipate the need for law enforcement. So for instance, we have an officer who drives an ambulance part-time. We have officers who teach. Law enforcement is not anticipated in any of those capacities. They work strictly for another entity, whether it be a college or the Upshur County EMS or another company. And the employment arrangement is between them and that company. The only requirement that we have for secondary employment in our employee handbook is that first and foremost, it doesn't interfere with the primary employment, which is the city of Buckhannon, and secondly, that they have permission of the supervisor to do that. The other condition that CALEA designates is extra duty employment, and as you can imagine, extra duty employment is where you would anticipate law enforcement services. So instances like security, when you're in your uniform, when you're in your city police cruiser, those circumstances are considered extra duty employment. Those are tier 1 standards that have to be addressed for accreditation. One of which is that the detail, the extra duty employment itself, follows all the standards of the parent agency in a police department. That if the officer is acting in the capacity of security for at a concert or wherever, but they are still adhering to the policies as set forth by the Buckhannon Police Department, because in essence, they are still an employee of the Buckhannon Police Department and not the employee of the third-party entity as you would be in a secondary employment arrangement. The other condition of that is kind of branches out into the insurance realm. And Amby could probably chime in a little bit about this as well. I know we've had, as we've continued to explore the extra duty employment standards with CALEA, we've also looked at the insurance side. And the insurance side says that if the individual is your employee, they still fall under your workers' comp. That if something would happen to them in an extra duty capacity, if they would be injured or something like that, then they would fall back on who their employer is at that point. And in this case, it would be the city of Buckhannon. Informally, again, if it's an arrangement between the entity and the officer, it negates the employer status of the city of Buckhannon in terms of the insurance coverage. What most other agencies, and I've polled other CLEA agencies on how they address extra duty employment, what most other agencies do is they still allow it to occur. It's got to, again, it's got to adhere to the CLEA standards, as I've mentioned, and it's got to be granted permission by the agency CEO. So every detail would have to be approved by the administration. The agencies that have addressed this through CLEA allow extra duty employment. However, they pay the employee at their rate of time and a half, which is the overtime rate, and they're covered by their workers' comp and all the other benefits that they have by virtue of being an employee. In turn, the requesting entity will reimburse the city those wages and benefits that are paid to the employee working in that extra duty capacity. So in essence, the contract is between the entity and the city, not the entity and the individual officer, because the individual officer is still working in an employment capacity of the city of Buckhannon. So, and if you want to chime in on the insurance
Would those
side.
costs be higher than what we're currently paying?
Yeah.
What?
Well, it depends on which officer they would be using.
And whether they're in overtime status.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would always be overtime.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much.
So pretty much all of them would be over the amount that they're paying now. And I talked to Tom a little bit about it. He expressed concern that they would be in the city vehicle with the city, they're wearing their city uniform. The insurance said the same thing. That's a liability for the city. See, how it happens now is they pay this person opposite. And so they still need to be under the control of the city of Buckhannon as far as employment. They need to be under our work because something could happen. If someone would leave there, for instance, and they happen to have an accident and there was a DUI involved, they're going to bring the city into this lawsuit anyway. So it's a liability by them not being under, for them, as well as the city, by them not being under our coverage.
One case in point on that, and I believe this happened in Charleston a number of years ago, but an officer with that agency was working in an extra duty capacity as security for, I don't know if it was the mall or if it was some other entity, and they were working directly for that third party, not as an extension of their employment with the city, and they were injured. And when they went to file a workers' comp claim, the city's insurance denied it because they said they weren't acting as a city employee. They were directly contracted with the third party. Of course, the third party didn't have insurance that covered them, and they were kind of in limbo in terms of having their injury covered.
You guys have plenty of insurance, don't you?
We do, and we also cover a liquor liability policy.
So could this be structured in that third-party manner then, except for the workers' comp issue?
There are two models to extra duty employment that we're looking at, and of course we haven't adopted them officially yet because it's still in the construction phase of that particular policy. We just haven't gotten to that point yet with the CLEA standards. One is that the entity contracts directly with the city and reimburses the officer's placement in terms of their time and a half and their benefits. The other is that the third-party entity assumes all of that.
Right.
With the idea that they carry the insurance for them for workers' comp as well. And that the city, by granting permission of the employee representing themselves in their city-issued uniform, their city-issued cruiser, that's allowed, the city is granting that, but that third-party entity is the employer. In every respect of that, not only in terms of salary, but also benefits and insurance coverage.
I would favor the later model, and the agreement, I think, would need to be I haven't read the agreement, but I think there would need to be some strong save and hold harmless language in there, that the city is simply really a matchmaker. We're introducing the CVB to our police officers who are, we're giving the blessing for them to moonlight, essentially.
It would be easier for us possibly too, just because like you said, different officers are different rate of pay. And I mean, we're quoting people sometimes 9 months in advance, so it's hard
Right.
to tell who would be.
You all just have one flat rate as
Flat
part of
fee,
it.
$15, $20, what, 25
Let's
bucks,
talk
whatever it is
for
now.
insurance,
30, I hear 35.
Have there been any issues?
No, fortunately not, and I'm gonna be quite honest, the officers have been lucky. That because if there would have been, they would have been in limbo because they weren't covered by the city. They were acting independently.
So this helps
with our permission.
clarify.
We're just trying to, tidy everything up and make sure.
What could, I'm the insurance agent for the Upshur County CVB,
Yeah,
so.
that's good that you're here.
What,
None of us ever have any conflict of interest.
no, it's a small town. So I do not have the city's insurance. So, what we could do, you have workers' compensation on your policy, on your package right now. So what we could do, and what could happen is that we add a class code to the workers' compensation policy that's currently in existence for whatever it is. I don't know the number offhand. I'd have to look it up for security, for manned security. If that's the case, then when that person is contracted with you, you assume that they become part of your workers' compensation policy. You know, you put in a minimum payroll because you're not going to have that person full-time. It's just going to be on an as-needed or if any basis. So it becomes a minimum payroll. So all you have to do is then just add it, endorse it. We endorse it to your policy, and then whomever you contract with, if it's the city of Buckhannon, if it's an officer with the city of Buckhannon, we can provide the city with language that says, if an officer is over on your side, they are covered under this particular workers' compensation policy with this particular limit. And I can tell you that we already have $1 million in liability coverage on the general, as well as $1 million on the workers' comp. So it's probably
Already with
equal and similar to what the city of Buckhannon has on the first party liability. So we're consistent. So each party could swap proof of insurance and it would be okay.
Well, there are a couple other elements to this. I mean, you derive 70% of your funding. Well, we give you 70% of what we collect for hotel motel tax. I don't know if that's 70% of your funding or not, but we get you 70% of whatever we collect for the tax. And we are actually, the city is the quasi-owner of the event center, part of the
We are your
complex out
tenants,
there.
right.
We ponied up $765,000 to realize that room. So I think it's just, if we can make it happen, and other cities are doing these kinds of things in other places, I think we can structure it in such a way that protects the city, minimizes the city liability, protects the CVB and our police officers. But how quickly do you need this? Can we let Tom, can we give him 2 weeks to
Certainly.
look at the agreement, and we'll put it back on the agenda for action at the March 7 meeting? Does that sound acceptable to council?
Does this also satisfy your tier 1 requirement, Chief?
COIA doesn't dictate which direction in terms of the insurance route you should go. The primary concern with COIA is that the standards of the parent agency are adhered to in their capacity of extra duty employment. The insurance issue is more of an insurance, city insurance, and really outlook for the employee itself with our agency. And again, I've seen from our parent insurance company, Travelers, I have models of each that we could address as we address this with COIA.
I'd add, in addition to everything the chief just said, and CJ inquired him about, the event center is in the city limits. It was annexed. So that there is that extra element. We're not going outside of our jurisdiction. We're not authorizing our police officers to It's not like they're going to Weston or Elkins. They're still within the corporate limits doing what they would do.
It's beneficial to us because that way, you know, there's never any question from the state side. Whenever we say we're working with the city police officers, then they're immediately just completely satisfied with what we're fulfilling with their requirements. And then it is really nice because we have a lot of public events that the officers are there and they're able just to interact with the community. And I mean, I think it's been a really good partnership so far.
Matt, I think in addition to the agreement between the city and the CVB, there should be an acknowledgement statement that each officer who's going to participate in this program would sign the form that, look, I understand if I undertake these, I don't have to undertake these. This is not going to be an assigned kind of a thing. They're freelancers in that respect, and that they understand that if anything were to happen involving their service during that time, it's between the officer and the CVB essentially.
Absolutely, yes.
So Matt, if you have more than one officer that wants the duty, how is it seniority, or how would you determine who
It
gets?
starts with seniority, but we have a pool that we go through of officers that are interested in extra duty employment that we try to rotate through.
May also be worth noting, Mayor Amy Goodwin in Charleston has gone public to say that they're going to step up security at the Charleston Town Center Mall with Charleston City police officers. Maybe look at, are they on duty when they're doing that? Charleston obviously has 100 and some officers, and we have, 7 or 8 patrolmen, but I mean, Charleston has a lot more. So are they on duty? Are they acting under the city of Charleston when they're in the mall? Are they contracted out? Is it individual? Is it voluntary? Is it at night? Is it during the day? I mean, we may just look at that too and just see what they do. It's kind of similar. It's
Everybody good with this? We'll advance this again at the March 7 meeting.
Yep.
But I feel comfortable in telling you I think we can make this work.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Keep up the good work. Okay, is there anybody else that wanted to be recognized that didn't indicate they wanted to be a guest? Buck Edwards has had enough already. He's see you, Buck.
I'm providing security.
Yeah, right.
Department and board reports. Callie Cronin Sims, Sam's got, easy for me to say, Sims got a new name. She's under the weather tonight. Jerry Arnold went home about midday with a stomach bug, so we're glad he's not here. Amby Jenkins is well and with us, and in the 43 years she's been working here, I don't ever remember Amby being sick, so.
Way to jinx her.
Nah, hopefully not.
She's pretty tough.
She's a tough cookie. That's right.
you were gonna say tough.
I met that in high school.
Go ahead, Amby.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and mention that Callie did send me an email and wanted me just to mention just a few short things here. She has some information in the packet, but she wanted me to tell you that the city enjoyed taking Senator Manchin on, or actually I think it was Mayor McCauley took him on the tour of downtown. There was a photo taken at the theater that was, she put on Facebook, and it was 6,300 people reached out to that, and she said it was shared 52 times with 136 likes. Callie herself has attended 2 art grant workshops since the last council meeting. She attended the supervisors meeting, and she's asked the departments to give her information about what they're currently working on, so she can go out and get the information, take pictures, and put that on our website and Facebook. And she's also going to share that the Volunteer Center and herself are working on newsletters to send out, that they'll share all of that information with the community. She wanted to remind everyone that the Stockert Youth Center and Stockert Youth and Community Center is having their Sweetheart Dance tomorrow at the Moose Lodge. And she wants everyone to check out the Google Calendar on the front page of meeting times on our website. And then she is also working in conjunction with CJ and our mapping to get a map of our parking in downtown Buckhannon to show ADA spaces, where the 2-hour parking is, where the parking lot's at, and just generally where parking is in relation to the downtown Buckhannon. So that was her report. Under my report, I think I was next, right?
You are.
Go right into it, okay. Balances for the enterprise funds for January 31st, 2019. Water checking, $296,380. Of that, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline Project has $698,000. The Water Department has CDs in the amount of $976,000. Waste Department has checking in the amount of $574,000 with a CD of $57,226. Sanitary Board checking has $423,000 and they have CDs of $213,559. The Consolidated Public Works Board has $117,710 and they still have a CD in the cemetery for cemetery operations of $227,000. And of course, council knows we've been working on the 2019-20 fiscal year budget. So we had our first working session on Monday. So this information is just more for public. I'm just going to make it brief because we're still working on it. But this budget is in the amount of $4.4 million. It does not have any sales tax involved with it. We're still waiting on some legislation about our sales tax ordinance and when that might be implemented. And so we're building this budget without any sales tax in it at this time. That'll come later. One of the big ticket items in the grant, or on the budget, is a grant for Gateway West in the amount of $412,000. And then council is looking at and considering some pay increases for city employees. I think that unless council wants to discuss it further anytime sooner, we're probably going to wait for those valuations from the assessor's office and have our next meeting in March. I expect those valuations to come in either next week or the 1st of March. And I did call the assessor and he thinks it's about the same as it was last year. But we've had some construction in this past year that will show up on the following year. But that's where we're at right now. Still working on the budgets, still more information to come.
Questions for Abby? A couple of things that I screwed up on, Abby. I forgot to read Jerry's report to everyone. It's not very lengthy, so I'll do that. And then I also forgot to let our college students introduce themselves. I didn't forget about you folks, including this young lady right here. What's your name, young lady? This is from Jerry. I have been assisting the street crews as time permits. I hope to send out the employee engagement survey next week and report on results at the next meeting. We have been in contact with Ray Donazzo with Wolf Creek Contracting, the contractor on the 88 ADA ramps in and around town. Construction will begin the next week or two and must be completed by April 1st. So that's good news. The installation of the service for C.J. Martin on Brushy Fork was completed. Installing fire and domestic service for the Innovation Center. Replaced a pump at the Tennerton Booster Station. The Department of Highways Equipment Division assisted in performing some machine work with fitting so that proper alignment could be achieved. So that's your water department report. Sewer department, crew 1 working on setting up the new truck to put in service. Crew 2 answering sewer calls. The maintenance crew installed a new control panel in the sludge pump station for the sump pump. Installed weights on the floats at the Elias Street pump station. And the plant crew is conducting its normal winter maintenance out at the plant. Waste department continue to work on delivering the toters. And the shop crew has been busy with maintenance and a couple of substantial repairs out at the garage. Street department, the crew continues to pour sidewalks on Meade Street as the weather permits. The floor in the theater has been completed and they are starting to frame out the restrooms. The crew will be setting forms for another concrete pour at the Traders Alley Milkman Lane intersection. The street crew assisted the water department in the demolition of sidewalk across from the entrance of Sheets for the installation of a new water line. They will re-pour the walkway once the water line is installed. And engineering from Jay Holland, local flood control project. Discussions are being held with AMBI to determine funding available to more accurately develop a scope of work for a Phase 1 project. And the North Buckhannon Riverfront Park Phase 2 project received grant amendment number 3 from the West Virginia Development Office. The grant amendment is for the Phase 2 improvements at the North Buckhannon Riverfront Park. The approximate cost of the project is $42,853, of which the city will be responsible. and this is our in-kind contributions mainly, $21,426.50. The proposed improvements include perimeter fencing around the grass recreation fields, security cameras, ADA-compliant concrete crosswalks, resurfacing of the outdoor basketball court, and installation of 2 collapsible bollards at walking path locations to prevent access by vehicles. Per the requirement of the grant, the project shall be completed by August 31. So that's Jerry's report. Now, back to our students. Little Katie Kuba is here. You're a sophomore marketing major, is that right?
Freshman.
Freshman. That's good. That's a good story. Nice try. Mr. McLeod, you want to lead us on?
I'm Dave McLeod. I'm from New Smyrna Beach, Florida. A baseball player and a member of Kappa Alpha Order.
Yeah, I never knew you were a baseball player. Things I found out. You got a lot in common.
Oh, and I'm a business admin major with a chem minor. That's it.
Kim Meyer. Ah, yes, sir.
I'm Harry Smith-Ravis. I'm from Athens, Greece. I'm business administration and I play in the tennis team.
Super.
I'm Lindsay Poling. I'm from Thomas, West Virginia. I'm an accounting major with advanced minor.
My name's Kayla Wade. I'm a sophomore accounting major with a management minor. I'm on the acro team.
I'm Caitlin Tucker. I'm from Clarksburg, West Virginia. I play on the soccer team. I'm an accounting major. I'm a freshman.
I'm Natalie Prue. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'm on the soccer team and I'm a marketing major.
I'm Gunnar Christensen. I'm from Calvert County, Maryland. I'm an accounting major, a junior, and I play football.
I'm Grant Safford. I'm from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I'm a business admin major and I play football.
Sure.
I'm Hunter Allen. I'm from Winfield, West Virginia. I'm a forensic accounting major, a member of Kappa Alpha Order as well, and I'm a sophomore.
And here and there helps out the fire department, right? Yeah.
I'm Kaylee Pittman. I'm a sophomore accounting major, and I'm from Philadelphia.
Sure. Did we get everybody?
My name is Ben Abel. I'm an accounting major, sophomore. I'm from Haymarket, Virginia.
Super. Great having you. Remember, 2-page paper due next Friday. Okay. Now we've got all our guests caught up. Chief Gregory, we got that exciting annual police report. Man,
What's your timeline, Matt?
it's the highlight of
I've got, we can start the timer 15 minutes last year.
Oh, he's sitting down, that's about
You did a great job last year.
You don't feel well?
Been an epidemic of jaywalking. C.J. Rylands does it 3 times a day.
Yeah.
A lot of jaywalking.
I will try to.
Are you going to use the screen?
Yes.
Oh, good, then I don't have to read. I mean.
Well, I'll give you the clips then
You don't have to read.
The voters watch this.
I like to read, but I like the big screen.
We're gonna have us some pictures, Chief.
You have a report you can take home with you for reading later. I'll just hit on the highlights of the main activity. The report itself is broken into 2 broad categories. The activity, the operational component of the police department, and then the second component is the community outreach that we're involved in throughout the year. The introduction is just a breakdown on the sources of the reports, of the information contained therein. If you look at page 2, the top part of the activity is the self-report information from the officers in terms of how they spend their hours on each shift. So you can see how those break down. I will point out that per comm center data, there was 1,885 traffic stops in 2018 and 3,851 911 calls. I'll point this out again on the top 5. This is actually double the 911 calls than what we had in the last couple of years. And as you know, I usually try to do a trend at least the last 3 years. Total calls answered was 5,158. This is both 911 calls and all other calls, whether it be individuals coming to the police station, calling us on the telephone, or stopping us when we're out on patrol. I'll talk more about accidents later. There was 181 total accidents. You can see how it broke down. 140 just involving property, 40 accidents with injuries, and we did have 1 fatality in 2018. Police officers issued 136 parking tickets and took 633 offense reports. Of those 633 offense reports, 433 were cleared for a clearance rate of 68%. The report is cleared if either an arrest has been made or if there's an exceptional clearance. An exceptional clearance can mean a number of things, to include that the victim is unwilling to cooperate, that prosecution is declined, or the death of an offender. Reports can also be unfounded, meaning there's not enough evidence to substantiate that a crime itself has occurred. So that would be a way that a crime is cleared as well, if it is found unfounded. Now, if you look at the 3-year trends, we're actually lower than 2017 and 2016, but still remains steady. The accidents are up just a little bit. There's 13 more accidents in 2018 than what there were in 2017.
Probably the McDonald's bypass.
Do what?
Probably the McDonald's bypass.
It may be. I know mid-year we started looking at more of a breakdown of the accident data for the CLIA standards. And as you recall, in the monthly reports, we have a spreadsheet that lists each location. And there were a number of accidents along Marion Street that can directly be attributed to the McDonald's bypass, especially over the summer. So I would say that's very accurate. Page 5 again reiterates the criminal reports. Of the 633 criminal reports taken in 2018, it reported on 846 crimes. Sometimes reports are what we call multiple offense clearance indicators, meaning that you're reporting on more than one crime. For instance, if somebody breaks into a house and steals something inside, you're reporting on 2 crimes at that point. So there was 846 total crimes reported. Of that number, the top 5 is no shock. It's really the same top 5 that we have, give or take, every year, with shoplifting leading the way. There were 138. Now bear in mind, these are crimes reported. These are not arrests that are made. I'll have a category for the arrests that were made. This is just reports of crime. 138 reports of shoplifting, of which 14 were felonies, 99 larcenies, of which 9 were felonies, 85 drug offenses, of which 14 were felonies. I will point out, I'm going to spend just a little more time with, there's some new additions to the annual report to include the annual report for the Mountain Lakes Drug and Violent Crime Unit. This number is not inclusive of the task force's numbers. This is just strictly the patrol component of the city police department.
Did the task force make arrests in city limits?
Yes, several arrests, as a matter of fact. So I'll point that out when I get to, I'll spend a little more time with it. 44 hit and runs and 42 destruction of properties. I itemize each arrest, and those are included in your packets for both misdemeanors and felonies. For 2018, there were 410 misdemeanor arrests made and 81 felony arrests made. So the felonies were just a little higher than 2017, misdemeanors a little lower. Traffic citations, again, is itemized. For 2018, there were 669 traffic citations issued. You can see that is a sharp decline from the past 2 years. Warnings issued in 2018 was 1,161. So almost twice as many tickets that were written. And again, those are itemized as well. The top 5 of everything, of course I've talked about the top 5 reports for 2018. Traffic is really the same as what it's been the last several years in terms of the top 5. Misdemeanor arrests also are the top 5. I will point out again, drug offenses were the number 2 misdemeanor arrest for 2018. And again, this is not the task force. Felony arrests are the top 5. You can see that the drug crime of possession with the intent to deliver of 6 felony arrests. That was the 4th highest felony arrest in 2018. And conspiracy at number 2 is often attributed to drug crimes as well.
Are we still seeing that of the actual crime that's taking place in the corporate limits? Are we still seeing the breakdown that a lot of it is from not the citizens of the city of Buckhannon? They're either county residents or outside of here residents?
Yeah, I think that remains consistent. I think the data that I discussed a number of months ago when we were entertaining the municipal sales tax was that, especially with the reports and arrests, that there was a good portion, off the top of my head, I think it was at least 25-30% out of city residents, and then of course with accidents was much higher than that. In fact, the majority of accidents are non-city residents, so that remains consistent.
Matt, what delineates between misdemeanor and felony?
Misdemeanor is a less serious crime that is punishable by up to 1 year in jail. A felony is the most serious crime that is punishable by, in West Virginia, up to life in prison. Some typical felonies would be like burglary, delivery of a controlled substance. There are graduated offenses that also classify as felonies, such as 3rd offense shoplifting, 3rd offense domestic battery, 3rd offense DUI. And then of course some typical misdemeanor examples would be like battery, petty larceny. The distinction of any of your larceny or any of your theft crimes for that matter is $1,000. Anything less than $1,000 is a less serious categorized crime, labeled as a misdemeanor. Anything over 1,000 is a felony. And again, whether it be embezzlements, fraudulent schemes, larceny, any of the theft crimes, the $1,000 mark is the distinction of felony and misdemeanor.
Thanks.
The top 5 911 calls, and again, if you look at, this is data that is provided to us by the Upshur County Comm Center. There were 3,851 911 calls. That is more than double what existed in 2017 as well as 2016. The top 911 call was 261 calls for MVA. MVA stands for motor vehicle accident. 211 welfare concerns, 203 alarms, 135 reckless driving. That's the age of the cell phone. And then 130 stolen property calls. The next page is the Mountain Lakes Drug and Violent Crime Unit overall activity from May 2018 through December 18th, 2018. And this was provided to the Board of Directors by the unit coordinator with the unit. Right now, the unit is made up of the Buckhannon City Police, the Upshur County Sheriff's Department, the West Virginia State Police, and the Braxton County Sheriff's Department. Lewis County Sheriff's Department was a member agency, however, they have opted to withdraw at this time. These numbers are indicative of the entire region. So this covers a 3 to 4 county region. There has been on the Braxton County side, there has been some work throughout the region in Gilmer County as well. That's why I say 3 to 4 counties. So this isn't all in Buckhannon, but I will say that the it certainly includes Buckhannon. And as you recall from some of the press releases that the unit released back in the fall, there has been a lot of activity specifically in Buckhannon and Upshur County. That's indicative in these overall numbers as well. So I'll just break this down just real quick and then entertain any questions, because there's just a lot of new stuff in here that I haven't had in past reports. In the 7-month time period that this particular report covers, the unit initiated 85 new investigations, made 83 state felony arrests. There were 27 Board of Pharmacy reports. 109 criminal investigation reports were conducted. When a report is made by the task force, it is outside of the scope of the city police. So we don't archive the report in city police records, even though we have an employee working on the task force. They keep their own records. They have their own what's known as an ORI number, which is a unique operating number that the state assigns to every law enforcement agency. So they operate under that ORI number and have their own office and have their own reports, house their own evidence. The unit made 81 controlled purchases. Money spent on these purchases was $6,255. That is money that is made available to the task force by the state police.
So this is undercover purchases?
Yes. 37 drug seizures took place. The amount of the drug value from the seizures was $325,595. Currently, the property seized in both property and currency by the unit is $55,650. One federal judicial search warrant has been served. 22 state search warrants have been served during this time period. 22 electronic intercept orders. That's an order from the court to be able to run a wire. And then, of course, the breakdown on all the different types of drugs seized, and you can see it's a wide variety of drugs that are in our area. Everything from cocaine, heroin, marijuana, methamphetamine. I will point out 742 grams of methamphetamine is substantial. That is a lot of methamphetamine for a small area, especially. Seven federal felony arrests were made, 312 WIVX reports. WIVX stands for the West Virginia Intelligence Exchange. This is the state police compendium for intelligence information on criminal cases. They work, again, with state police being an integral role to the unit. They work very closely with WIVX. 171 intel reports were generated. That's their own internal, they call them memorandum of files. Their own internal intel reports, and then 73 buy assists, and a buy assist is assisting another task force outside of specifically the scope of this task force.
Chief Gregory, is that, when you say like 742 grams or anything, are there bulk busts there where like major distributors have actually been arrested, or is that mostly just individual? I don't understand the terminology, so I hate to say retailer, but
yeah.
Was it a wholesaler bust or a retailer?
There have been a lot of lower level buys at this point, and of course, again, understanding that the task force is still in its infancy, it's still getting off the ground. In fact, when it started from scratch. And so as it builds its cases, it's you've seen a lot of lower level arrests, a lot of lower level dealers that have been arrested. There are some more significant cases that are representative in these numbers as well that are either pending or have been resolved as well.
Do you know why Lewis County opted out? And they seem to have a lot of activity.
They certainly do. I know that they've had some turnover with their agency, and so there were some manpower concerns, and so I don't know if that's primarily why, but I do know that was certainly a factor that he had a number of officers that went various places to different agencies.
Matt, is there any geographical area that is sort of flooding our counties that are involved in this task force? Is it coming from Pittsburgh, Detroit, Columbus, or just everywhere?
The primary artery for, and it just depends on the drug, the primary artery for drugs like heroin, prescription narcotics come from Detroit. We see a lot of the crystal meth. As you recall, years ago, we used to have a lot of problems with meth labs in Upshur County, and so a lot of the meth that was manufactured was done locally. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't still occur, but there have been a lot of measures that have been undertaken over the years that have really curbed the proliferation of meth labs, to include statutes that have tightened down on them, access to Sudafed, just a whole host of different things that have occurred that have really made it much more difficult than what it once was.
Once these individuals are arrested and charged, what's the process then? Are they taken off the street, or do they get out on bail and start doing?
Well, everybody who's arrested has a right to bail unless it's a serious crime like kidnapping or homicide. It's a constitutional right to make bail. So that is, in terms of the level of the bail that is set, that is at the discretion of the magistrate. They are under the constraints of the 8th Amendment, that the bail is not excessive, that it is reasonable when they set it. And reasonable in terms of, first and foremost, if they're an escape risk. Bail is not meant to be a punishment or a sentence of any type. Bail is just meant that is a guarantee that the person will come back and appear in court. The case is tried in court, and then the sentence is what is imposed upon them if they are found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is at the discretion of the judge to a large degree, and in some cases there are more stringent sentencing guidelines, especially when you're talking about the federal government. In close tandem with the task force's activities last fall, we were also involved with a number of drug investigations with the ATF and other federal agencies. They seized seized a number of assets, arrested a number of people as a result of this investigation. And by virtue of the federal sentencing guidelines, because of the types of drugs, primarily meth, that they were involved in, they're facing quite a bit more time than what they would have faced in state. State is usually 1 to 5, depending just as a base, and giving the judge the discretion in that type of sentence. Federal sentencing guidelines can see, especially if you introduce a weapon, can see 20 or 30 years. So it just depends on the court in a lot of cases. What I was saying about meth, even with the labs becoming less prevalent, it doesn't mean that meth is not. Meth actually is still one of our #1 drugs over here in terms of the frequency that we see it. We're seeing a lot of the meth come from out west. It's a direct line from the western states, and a lot of times it's from Mexico as well. Does anybody have, before I move forward, any other questions about the task force specifically?
But again, all of those numbers are for the entire region that the task force
Yes, make no mistake, that is the entire region. That's not just the city of Buckhannon.
Okay.
We are part of that task force, but these numbers represent the entire region.
Do our officers go down into Braxton County and their officers come up in Upshur County?
Yes.
How about, do you think the future you might see Lewis County come in here and Randolph County and so forth? Because you think this has been very successful.
I do.
Randolph, what?
I do. In a large part, I've been talking about how I feel successful, but I really stand behind these numbers. You know, as a member of the board of directors at our regular meetings, we're constantly getting briefings from the task force coordinator. So this is just consistent with what I've seen all along with these briefings, and I believe that it's a worthwhile endeavor for the city of Buckhannon to be involved in this unit. I would like to see all of our partner agencies in our region certainly be involved. I don't know that Randolph County would on this one because they have their own task force. They have the Mountain Region task force. which comprises Randolph, Pocahontas, and I believe parts of Tucker.
What's the most vulnerable age category, Matt, that you have witnessed or empirical data shows is most vulnerable as far as doing meth and crack and cocaine and heroin? Do you have those kind of statistics?
Just historically speaking, most drugs do not know boundaries, whether rich, poor, young, old, educated, uneducated. I've seen it affect all types of and all walks of life. I will say that just on average, by and large, individuals between the ages of 20 and 40 are usually going to be the higher risk with these types of drugs, especially when you're talking about meth and this types of drugs. That's just what I've seen. I don't know if that's necessarily the rule across the board, but that's just my experience.
Of course, doing the drugs also increases the crime rate because they need money to buy.
Right. If you have a drug problem, you have a theft problem specifically, and I will say we are fortunate that but Buckhannon remains a safe community. We're very fortunate that we're not overwhelmed with the types of violent crime that we see in even other areas of the state, let alone beyond the state. So we're
just next door.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're very fortunate here in terms of the fact that it is a safe community. There are theft issues, there are property crime issues in our community, and I wholeheartedly believe that a lot of that is directly related to the drug issues. There's a distinct reason why year after year the top 5 crimes, 2 of the top 5 crimes are shoplifting and larceny. That's a theft problem, and that's directly related to usually what follows it in the top 5, the number 2 or 3 spot, and that's drug offenses. Whether you're talking about reports or arrests. It's
Chief Gregory, how much is in a bundle of heroin? What is a bundle of heroin?
A bundle of heroin is packaged in stamps, and so the dosage unit would be an individual stamp, and it looks like the square version of a stamp, and it's usually in powder form, and it's cooked down into a liquid format for injection. I believe 20 stamps make a brick, and off the top of my head, I know it's a number of bricks make a bundle.
Was that a single seizure, that bundle?
Without looking at the individual report, I couldn't tell you. I don't think so, and I say that because of the various reports that I've seen. I've seen a number of different heroin seizures. So I would have to imagine that combined they equal a bundle.
Have you seen much of an increase in fentanyl?
We're starting to see it here, yes. And that's the danger that you run into with heroin is that
They lace it with fentanyl.
heroin is cut with fentanyl. And the reason that it is done is to create more of the product so it can be sold at a higher rate of profit on the street. And fentanyl, as you know, is a very powerful tranquilizer that it only takes a gram or 2 to come in contact with skin, and it can cause a fatal overdose. There have been stories as close as the border counties in Ohio where officers at that location were searching a vehicle, and one officer in particular saw a little piece of white, what he thought was dust on his shirt, so he just went to wipe it off as you normally would if you thought you had a piece of dust on your shirt. Turned out it was fentanyl. Just from that contact, he immediately went down to the ground, and luckily his partner who was with him had Narcan and was able to administer Narcan and bring him back to wow. So that was just in Ohio. I mean, you're talking about an hour and a half away where that occurred, and it's, make no mistake, it's here. Most of our overdoses that occur is because of fentanyl, not the heroin itself. It's the fentanyl in the heroin. That's what we're finding with our fatal overdoses. any other questions about the task force?
Well, I'm glad we joined.
Yeah, I stand by these numbers. I believe it's beneficial. I believe that it's making a positive impact in our community, in our region. Just imagine if it wasn't in existence, how much of this would still be out there.
Yeah.
The next two reports that are new to the annual report are CALIA items. The first is the annual analysis for vehicular pursuits. CALIA requires a number of things for vehicular pursuits. We have a pursuit policy that is modeled after the International Association of Chiefs of Police policy. With every pursuit, an officer is required to file a post-pursuit report. There's a number of areas that they report on in terms of the conditions of the pursuit, what caused it, what they found afterwards. All of our cruisers are equipped with GPS units. So one thing that's when a cruiser is involved in a pursuit, we are able to do two things per the GPS units. One, we are able to print out a speed profile, which tells us the average, the top, the low, and the average speeds, as well as a Google map of the pursuit itself. So that becomes evidence. That becomes part of the post-pursuit review. Every time a post-pursuit report is completed pursuant to a report or to a pursuit by an officer, it receives supervisory review. We review everything that is available to us, including not only the report itself, the officer's narrative, the GPS data, and any videos that are accompanied. Every report that is analyzed is done so by myself and Lieutenant Loudon, and specifically with pursuits, we also have the city attorney evaluate those as well. The evaluation is looking for adherence to the policy. If there are any policy issues that were violated or need corrected or changed during the pursuit itself. So that is the basis of the analysis. The annual analysis looks at all of the pursuits in the past year. So CALIA requires this each year, not only reporting each individual pursuit, but annual analysis. So just kind of walk down with you with this. There were 8 pursuits that the City of Buckhannon Police Department was involved in 2018. 4 of the 8 were initiated by the City Police Department. The other 4 were initiated by another agency, and we assisted. You can see that the top speeds are indicated. The highest speed is 95 for the 8th pursuit, and this was due to a wanted person. We also track the miles of the pursuit, and again, this is pursuant to the GPS data. The number of officers, whether an arrest was made, and all 8 pursuits, arrests were made, whether there was damage to a cruiser, and none of the 8 pursuits was there damage to the cruiser. They were not discontinued. The policy does have provisions for discontinuance of the pursuit, primarily if it becomes too dangerous. For instance, if you're in the middle of the day and you're in a heavily populated area and it's a high-speed pursuit, that would be an indicator that it should be at least considered for discontinuance, considering the circumstances. And again, that's another indicator. What were the circumstances of the pursuit? I list how the pursuit was terminated. There were a couple instances where the subject crashed. There were of the 2 crashes, there were no injuries. What was learned after the pursuit, on 3 of the pursuits, it was a stolen vehicle. One was a wanted person, which was known at the initiation of the pursuit. The other was actually there were 2 instances, 3 instances, I'm sorry, of the driver being under the influence of either alcohol or drugs, which in and of itself, there could be 2 distinctions we talked about the difference of felony or a misdemeanor. Pursuits become felonies, felony crimes under two circumstances. One is if it's in reckless disregard for the public, and generally you consider the actions of the driver and the speed of the pursuit. This is where the GPS data comes in handy. And the other is if they're under the influence. It's a felony DUI if they're driving or fleeing under the influence of either alcohol or drugs or both. Any questions on the pursuit analysis?
You don't ever have a suspect who's like watching his speedometer to make sure he's not going to get into reckless territory, do you?
Nah, they're usually
a low speed chase.
Well, there have been low speed chases. I think there's a couple in here, like the 60 mile per hour. There was one on the 4-lane where it didn't go any faster than that, and it started in Elkins and it ended up in Lewis County, but it didn't go fast at all, and so it didn't in and of itself qualify as reckless disregard in terms of that, but most of the time people are not thinking of that.
Yeah, was a person not even aware he's getting pursued? Just didn't pull over?
No, I've not had that experience. Again, it's our policy that
I know a couple people that drive that'll probably do
the
that.
lights and sirens have to be activated. And
well, 95, I mean, that's a normal day for me.
Citizens arrest. Well, the mayor had drinks before the meeting, and you just admit you go 95.
Guys driving 95.
We're pretty good shape.
Chief, I just heard about 6 crimes admitted to at once.
yeah, moving on to the use of force analysis. The use of force analysis is, like the post-pursuit, is an analysis of all use of force reports that are reported during the year. Just to understand what constitutes a use of force report. Our policy says that levels of force requiring a use of force report include whenever an employee does the following. And I would say because of the how stringent this policy is, and this is pursuant to 4 different CALEA guidelines, we probably over-report use of force in terms of what we're reporting on if you compare us to other agencies. A lot of agencies only report force if they discharge a firearm or if they use a less lethal type of weapon. We do it under these circumstances. 1, discharge or display, even display of a firearm other than for training or recreational purposes. 2, takes an action that results in or is alleged to have resulted in injury or death of another person. 3, applies force through the use of lethal or less lethal weapons. So again, those particular parts are typical to most agencies. This is where we go a little above and beyond. This also includes displaying less lethal weapons as a use of force. So if the officer just takes the taser out and points it at the individual, doesn't discharge it, he just takes it out and points it at the individual. That requires a use of force report. And then 4, applies weaponless physical force at a level as defined in Buckhannon Police Department Policy number 4.1, use of force, empty hand tactics. This is again where we over-report because a lot of agencies don't address physical force or empty hand tactics. Some do, some don't, some to a degree. We do on every type of empty hand tactic. Empty hand tactic is defined as this. Officers will, when and to the extent reasonably possible, attempt to use verbal communication skills to control subjects before resorting to physical control methods. Empty hand tactics include, but are not limited to, any of the following: takedowns, escorts, holds, joint locks, strikes, punches, and/or kicks. Empty hand tactics will be used only in accordance with policy and department training. Members should only use tactics appropriate to the situation, which have been taught by the West Virginia State Police Academy and other approved defensive tactics training. So if you initiate what's known as an arm bar, you're twisting somebody's arm to get them to comply with handcuffing. That requires a use of force report. So when you see the physical, the numbers for physical force in this analysis, it's a direct extension from the policy that I just read to you. Just kind of break down page 21, the graph. There were 396 total arrests. Now don't confuse that with the number of misdemeanors and the number of felonies, because if you add the two together, they're greater than the 396 number. This is 396 individuals who were arrested in 2018. The reason that the other numbers are higher is because some people were charged with multiple offenses. Of the 396 actual physical arrests made of an individual, there were 25 use of force incidents. I think I'll break that down to up in the narrative, 6.3% of all arrest incidents resulted in a use of force. Now, the numbers in terms of the types of use of force are going to be higher than 25 because in some incidents, more than one type of force is used. 20 of the 25 incidents were physical force per the definition that I just read from empty hand tactics in our policy. There were 8 occurrences that the taser was displayed, 0 uses in 2018, 0 displayed or used instances of the baton, 1 instance of the chemical agent, which is our OC spray, being displayed, 0 uses, 9 instances where the firearm was displayed, 0 uses of firearm. 10 combination, meaning that 2 or more of the above type that I just mentioned were used in the incident. The following is a breakdown of when these 25 use of force incidents occurred. Our day shift had 2 use of force incidents. 18 use of force incidents occurred during the 4 to 12 evening shift, and 5 occurred during midnight. So obviously the evening shift was by far the busiest in terms of use of force. 6 of the occurrences, the officer was by themselves. 8, there was 2 officers, and 11 of the incidents, there were 3 or more. Now that doesn't necessarily mean all Buckhannon City Police officers. It could also mean that we were assisted by another law enforcement agency, such as the Sheriff's Department or State Police. Of the 25 incidents, use of force incidents, 60% of all incidents, the individual was intoxicated by either drugs, alcohol, or a combination. 11 instances involved drugs, which was the highest compared to alcohol or a combination, 2 each. And then 4 of the occurrences involved an individual with mental illness. Any questions on that? The remainder of the report is just a breakdown of our community outreach activities. I won't go through these individually. You can see that I do have a description of a number of the events and pictures that we're involved in. We are very heavily involved with the community all throughout the year. This year is certainly no exception. As we move into 2019, we are gearing up for our Citizens Police Academy here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, preparing to train a number of new volunteers, as well as preparing for another Youth Police Academy, which is scheduled to occur the last week of June. And as we get a little closer to that, I'll have more on that. So, the remainder of the report includes the basic program report, which breaks down the involvement with that program. There were a total number of 7 students involved in 2018, and this breaks down the self-report survey of the stats that we gathered from them. And then the final 2 pages are the VIPS report that you all have already seen that we had in December, but I always like to include it with the annual report. The one thing that is missing is the pro officer. It is mentioned in the outreach, the community activities section of the report. But I do hope to, of course, with the monthly reports, and January is no exception, you'll have January's report in your package as well. I do include the pro report that Mark provides to us. It's a report that he makes to the state concerning his activities in the school. So I do provide that to you on a monthly basis. The school year just doesn't run on the calendar year. It runs, as you know, on the school year. And I do hope to have a more comprehensive annual report from the pro perspective as we get closer to June of this year. That comprises the 2018 report. Are there any other questions?
Questions for Chief Gregory?
Good job.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Keep up the, tell your officers we appreciate what they're doing.
I will, thank you.
And to always finish that shift
Absolutely.
and go home, right?
Yes.
City Attorney Tom O'Neill is also counsel for the West Virginia State Senate, and he is in Charleston this evening. We did receive word earlier today from Tom, and I also had messages from Senator Bill Hamilton and Lisa Dooley, who's the Executive Director of the West Virginia Municipal League. The matter pertaining to Buckhannon's local bill cleared the Senate Finance Committee, went to the Senate floor and was approved by the State Senate and is being entertained this evening by the House of Delegates. So we got another hurdle to clear. In your packet, you have a letter that I'd like to just take a moment and read so that everyone's aware of our lobbying efforts on behalf of not only our local bill, but also the permanency of West Virginia's home rule for all West Virginia municipalities. This is going to Robbie Martin and Patrick Martin. As you know, the Martin brothers are both representing parts of Upshur County as delegates. Dear gentlemen, I trust you both are doing well in handling all of the important work on behalf of your Buckhannon Upshur constituents during this busy time in Charleston. I'm writing to you regarding two bills soon to make their way to our House of Delegates that hugely impact the operations of our city of Buckhannon. I solicit your collective support for both bills. The first, establishing permanent home rule for West Virginia municipalities, and the second being a local bill that would permit Buckhannon's collection of sales taxes beginning July 1, 2019 versus January 1, 2020. Senator Bill Hamilton is a longtime supporter of home rule for all of West Virginia and is the sponsor of Buckhannon's local bill, being Senate Bill 535. The home rule opportunities have evolved to providing the lifeblood for many West Virginia cities, and in the 5 years now that Buckhannon was permitted by the State Home Rule Board to implement its own home rule plan, our city's residents have benefited in several ways, including through part-time police officer opportunities, to establishment of our enterprise zone to support new or expanding businesses in Buckhannon, to online auctions, to nuisance property abatement. Additionally, home rule permitted Buckhannon to join the more than 90 other municipalities that already had adopted the Sunday brunch bill. More recently, the City Council's adoption of the 1% sales tax that will permit Buckhannon to realize improved funding for our fire and police departments. I note that acquisition of a single new pumper truck will cost in excess of $500,000. Other important projects include the Stockard Youth and Community Center's new multi-use building, completion of the restoration of our Colonial Theater that will immensely benefit both our children and our arts organizations, added paving and sidewalk projects, a more comprehensive storm sewer system, expansion of our wonderful river trail, more playground equipment and installation of security cameras for our several parks, and many other public works projects that will substantially improve everyone's quality of life throughout our community, while making Buckhannon a more appealing point of destination that will help all of our retail stores, restaurants, and lodging establishments. Simply stated, Buckhannon is safer, cleaner, and more universally appealing and attractive to all people as a consequence of our home rule plan's implementation. Having served on the West Virginia Municipal League Board for nearly 3 years now, my colleagues from all of our other home rule cities consistently observe how vital permanent home rule is to our cities and hence all of West Virginia. Senator Hamilton has kindly sponsored Senate Bill 535 that upon passage will permit Buckhannon to effectuate its sales tax ordinance on July 1, 2019. The bill is currently before the Senate Finance Committee. Weston received similar favorable allowance a couple of years ago. Buckhannon now seeks that same opportunity. Our city's finance director, Amby Jenkins, estimates that our sales tax will generate about $1 million annually. By effectuating the ordinance this July 1 versus January 1, 2020, by next fall, we can immediately begin to apply collected tax funds to those many here and above described public works projects. Our city's general fund revenues have been mostly stagnant for the past 5 years, while costs have continued to increase. The sooner we can realize this much needed funding, the better it will be for all of our constituents. Passage of Senate Bill 535 is tantamount to a $500,000 grant from the state of West Virginia. If either of you have any questions or comments whatsoever concerning Buckhannon's request for assistance, please contact me at City Hall or via my cell phone or at my home. Everyone associated with our city appreciates your kind consideration of our requests. Good luck with all of your important work being exercised for our great state of West Virginia, signed by me as mayor. So we're hopeful that our delegates will support that as this matter is.
Did you only send that day?
Yes, that was sent.
February 11th.
Yeah, about 10 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had a response?
Have you heard from either one?
I received responses from Bill Hamilton and Lisa Dooley, but no response from either delegates, Martin.
Okay.
Correspondence and information. There's several things in your packet. There's a city PR statement regarding the Buckhannon Police Department Citizens Police Academy. Again, the deadline to apply is fast approaching next Friday, March 1. There is information from the Upshur County Homeless and Housing Coalition meeting. I serve on that coalition. It's the minutes from their January 9th meeting. There's a Freedom of Information Act request, past election results. It's a political science study being done out of Tulane University. There's the letter that I just read to you to Delegates Martin. And there's a cool article. You know, we raised some fuss the last couple of years when Buckhannon wasn't rated in the top 10 safest cities in the region. Well, guess what? We're now number 8. So that article is also in your packet. The consent agenda consists of 4 items. First, the approval of our minutes of our regular meeting on February 7th and a special meeting on February 18th. The approval of our building and wiring permits, the approval of the payment of the general fund bills, and the acceptance of resignation of Marcus Miller, who serves in our Streets and Parks Department. I'd entertain a motion that we approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Skinner. May I have a second to his motion? I have a second by Mr. Thomas. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Takes us down to strategic items. And the first matter, there's 6 items listed, but we've already tabled F4 until March 7th. F1, the approval of a recommendation, the Fire Civil Service Commission to appoint Deon Wamsley and Glenn Davis as provisionary temporary firefighters to serve up to 90 days. Brian Elmore is having major surgery and is going to be out for an estimated 3 months period of time. We don't want to kill our other young firefighters with overtime, and we are permitted to, under state code, to appoint a person or persons to fill that void when an emergency such as this arises.
We've done it before.
We have done it before. The last time Scott Preston, I believe, served when Aaron, help me out, Robbie. Aaron Goff had shoulder surgery, right? So Aaron came back for 2 weeks and then gave his letter of resignation, but that's neither here nor there. I would entertain a motion that we approve allowing Deon and Glenn to fill the void until Brian can return.
So moved.
Wow.
A crowded field.
I think I heard Mr. Skinner first and Mr. Ryland second the motion. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. F2. It's going to be here before you know it, guys. It's Strawberry Festival is just less than 3 months off. And looking ahead at the May calendar, the last several years, to avoid conflict with the parades and all that stuff that begin that Thursday, May 16th, I am asking the council to reschedule our Thursday, May 16 meeting 2 days prior to Tuesday, May 14th.
Moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Rigger. I have a second by Mrs. Albaugh. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing of the need for none, I will call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. There was an event that I am actually orchestrating through our the Diversity Appreciation Coalition. This Sunday at 1 o'clock as our primary activity to celebrate Black History Month. We're engaging folks with Buckhannon Community Theater, and anybody on the council that wants to participate is invited also. Martin Luther King's most famous speech, the I Have a Dream speech that was delivered in 1963, consists of 81 sentences. We are soliciting the involvement, and I don't have 81 people yet, so let me know if you want to do this. 81 people at alternating mics will step up and deliver one sentence of the Martin Luther King Jr. I Have a Dream speech. That's this Sunday at 1 o'clock. This idea was just floated about 2 weeks ago, right after our Consolidated Public Works Board had already met. And in instances when that occurs, when something comes together late, the matter is deferred to the City Council. I'm requesting that the council approve the use of Jawbone Park. There's going to be a song and an invocation. There's going to be about 12 minutes worth of the speech being delivered. And then Robbie Quarles from the college's new Wesleyan Gospel choral group will do another song, and then there'll be the benediction. The whole thing should last 20, maybe 25 minutes. Jerry Arnold's on board to install the sound system and all that stuff. If you all will approve it, I would entertain a motion that we allow the group to do this activity. I have a motion by Mr. Thomas, a second by Mr. Rylands. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing the need for none, I'll call for that question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. F4, we have that down on our March 7 agenda. F5, a request from the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office requesting the opportunity to purchase our old police cruisers that we have already taken out of our fleet. Amby or Matt, do you want to speak to that, or both of you?
I think it's donated.
Both of us. If this came up, actually, they want one donated to it. This came up, we have a representative from Congressman Mooney's office that comes in here usually about once a month, Rep. Doonesbury. And he happened to be in one day when I was getting some information together about our vehicles that we're getting ready to auction off. And he was telling me about some communities that are in desperate need financially for some operational vehicles. So on his rounds, he has told these communities about the vehicles we have that we're going to put up for auction. And of course, by code, the city council can donate, sell for a lesser price, or do whatever with these vehicles to another government entity. So Calhoun County, about 3 different communities contacted me and was telling me that they have no money in their budgets for vehicles. But Calhoun County has actually written a letter, and you see it in your packets. They're asking, they have 4 cruisers, 4 officers, and one is broken down, $3,500 to fix. It says, unfortunately, at this point in time in our current budget, we do not have those funds to fix the vehicle. I'm writing today to request a possible donation of your retired Ford Explorer. Any relief in our current situation is appreciated. Thank you for the consideration.
How old is that cruiser?
It's a 10.
2010, how many miles does it have on it?
Not almost 100,000, because I'm getting them ready for auction.
Do we have a value as to what we were expecting to realize from that?
I looked it up. I got around 3,000, could push 4,000. Mr. Doonesbury asked if you would please consider best you can. I don't know. It's up to you. We have 2 cruisers that work that are in what I would call good condition. This Explorer, and we have a Crown Vic.
Let me ask you this question. We have talked about our parking enforcement officer and also the VIPS folks having access to a vehicle.
Well,
I want to be paramount in addressing our needs before we would even consider a gift or a low purchase price. Do we have any other need for this vehicle?
We're using a vehicle right now, an old Jeep, I think it's what it is, and then they have a VIPS, a Crown Vic.
The old Runmark Crown Vic is what the VIPS is using now.
Okay. What's your recommendation, Chief Gregory?
I would recommend the council act favorably to this request. I spoke with the sheriff myself, and one of our concerns, and I was very upfront with him, and even invited him to come to Buckhannon and inspect the cruisers. They were both taken out of service. They both are functional, they operate, but they're not the best cars. That's why I didn't want to consider keeping them as a Vibbs car. The Crown Victoria specifically needed over $1,000 work just to get inspected, so I took it out of service and just going to put it up to auction. The Explorer is a little better, but again, I just didn't want to get into a financial pit with continuing to operate these for a number of years, and it would be more than it's worth, honestly.
So or is the proposal for a single vehicle?
Yeah.
And that's this 2010 that has 100,000 miles on it.
I will say this as an additive to this. The emergency equipment, to include the lights, sirens, what have you, they were all taken out of the vehicle in anticipation of it going to auction, to public auction.
Right.
I would not personally be against including that with anything that the city would either grant or negotiate with Calhoun County.
I would recommend to the council, subject to the council's concurrence, that we sell this vehicle to the Calhoun County Sheriff's Department for $1, and that a bill of sale making it very clear that this is completely as is, and we have no further liability or responsibility for anything that would go wrong with this cruiser. I would entertain a motion that we do that.
I'll make that.
I'll second
I have a
it.
motion by Mr. Rieger and a second by Mr. Skinner to sell to the Calhoun County Sheriff's Department for the amount of $1 the 2010 cruiser that Matt and Amby have described for us. Is there discussion on that motion?
I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I mean, we're very fortunate here. You know, I think it is our responsibility as a well-performing municipality in the state to help out those who are not as fortunate. We never know when we could lose something here, and we could be in a boat where we need something. So,
and folks have bailed us out in pinches in the past.
Mountain State has to stick together, so I support it.
Amby?
I like building relationships with other communities like this and helping them out if we can. I'd like to add a little and I don't know if we can do this, but I'd like to donate this vehicle or dollar sale with a challenge to the state surplus property, who has plenty of vehicles down there, that they could donate to some of these strapped communities that desperately need these vehicles.
They got a couple thousand vehicles I don't even know they own.
That's what I was going to say. I'm not sure they know what they have.
And I think maybe sending a letter to our legislators and saying we challenge you to offer up your vehicles to some community that needs it on whatever standards they want to set.
That would be cool. Good for you, Amby. This is a red flag, quite frankly. When you're looking at a county like Calhoun County, there are many, many counties in this state municipalities that are in trouble. And, you know, I've made some negative comments about the state legislature, but they need to get on board to really look at the revenue concerns and the expenses that are going through our whole system. And I've said many times that metro government is going to happen in the future, because the cost side of our equations are just getting worse and worse. And anybody who wants to get the press come to a water board meeting and look at the distribution of our water in the age of our infrastructure, we got some real challenges, David, ahead of us.
Yeah.
That you know, we need to take serious concerns about it. I agree with what we're doing, by the way.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Amby, will you have Tom prepare an appropriate bill of sale to reflect that, and let the good folks down in Calhoun County know we're thinking about it? F6, property valuations for insurance purposes. Amby and I just talked about this earlier today. I needed some clarification because I'd forgotten about what it was about. And in a nutshell, Jamie Powell, who does our insurance work, has, you guys got a lot of property. And if one of these buildings, many buildings that you own, a couple of dozen of them if you add them all up, we're just kind of guessing at what we think things are worth. And you really, at some point in the relative near future, ought to have a mass appraisal done on all of our properties. We think that this is probably going to cost us on down the pike a year or two, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to have this done.
That would be cheap.
It would.
Usually commercial appraisals are $3,000
or
a
more
piece
for
per
one
building.
Yeah. So what we will put it out there. Maybe we'll bid it. I don't know. We'll have a list of all of the properties that we own so that we can establish valuation. We're not looking to do that immediately, but probably like next year when we are in a little better general fund financial position.
I can help with this.
There you go. Robbie Skinner's going to do it for free.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Skinner.
We have software that we can certainly help in this, and it's not a conflict of interest because we have nothing to do with the city's insurance, but we can help to value our buildings because we do that for our clients.
I mean, just within a stone's toss of City Hall, in addition to City Hall, you got Stockard, the Public Safety Complex, the City Library, the Street Garage, the Colonial Theater, and that doesn't count getting out into the utility operations.
Right. Amby, I'll get with you and Jerry, and maybe we can start taking a crack at some of that.
So that's listed as strategic, but it's really more informational. Is there anything else? Did I steal all your thunder? Did you want to say anything else about that? Okay. Takes us down to comments and announcements. We're finished with strategic. Mrs. Albo, what do you have for us?
Glad to be back. Sorry I missed that special meeting, but Amby's given me more homework. Okay. Thank you, Amby. You're awesome. And good meeting tonight.
Glad to have you back in one piece.
Yeah.
Pam Caperi is with her family tonight. She's had company that came to visit, and that's the reason she's not here. Mr. Rollins, what do you got for us?
Thank everyone that participated in our elimination dinner. We raised a little over $6,000 and learned a few lessons. So wanted to thank everyone that took part in that. And Amanda got her balloon arch. So
that was great.
We accomplished several things.
Super. Mr. Skinner.
I would just like to put a plug out to the business community that 3 months from now is the Strawberry Festival. We need the business community to step up to continue to put this festival on and make it the best it can be. State funding is not what it used to be. This festival remains as the largest festival in West Virginia, spanning a week and a half. A lot is planned, but a lot needs funded. And we at one time were a large recipient of state funds, but that fund that has, through the Division of Culture and History, is not what it used to be. Even the Forest Festival, which is a rival of ours, doesn't receive what it used to either. So it is more up to our business community to step up and make this festival one of the best, in the region.
How much are you gonna need to raise, Robbie?
Total budget, we need 50 grand. I mean, to do it right, and we're working on it. A lot of businesses have stepped up over the years. They continue to step up. The city continues to be a contributor. The county contributes, but we need, every little event. From the horse and carriage pull on the first Saturday to bringing groups in from foreign countries to be in the Grand Feature Parade, they need sponsors, and a lot of our businesses in Westland is very good to house those groups that come in, but it's not cheap to have travel from elsewhere, and I think it's important for the business community and those of us that live here to remember that there are a lot of kids and families in this county that do not have the opportunity to see multicultural experiences outside of Central West Virginia. These groups come here and provide a culture, bring their culture to our community, and it's an educational component as well. So that's my plug. I am helping with the sponsorship. I'm not on the board, but I'm helping with the sponsorship. So we will work on this together and make sure that we can put on this festival and entertain our community and provide a great quality of life aspect for us.
Along that same line, we did receive the request letter from the Strawberry Festival, but it came in after the agenda was done. So we'll be sure to talk a little bit more about that at the March 7 meeting.
Okay.
Anything else, Robbie?
Nope.
Mr. J. David Thomas.
No comments this evening. Just thank everybody for what they're doing.
Super. Mr. Rieger.
No comments.
Just a couple of quick things. We had a great time with Senator Manchin yesterday. I got to spend about 10-15 minutes after he did his thing out at Brushy Fork, and then up at the college, we just walked Main Street and stuck our heads in at a few places, including the Colonial and the Opera House and Fishhawk Acres, and he was completely wowed by our downtown. And so that's always a good thing when guys like Senator Manchin are pleased to see our progress. I want to give the council a heads up on something. The Stockton Youth Center Board will probably be here at the March 7 City Council meeting. They really want to get the Masons in there and to break ground by setting the cornerstone for the new gymnasium. We are at about the $260,000 mark in funds collected and pledges. We need to really be serious about this building. They need another $100,000. So they're going to come, the board will be here in mass to ask the council to consider using a portion of our rainy day fund to allow that building for the ground to be broken sooner than later. I just want you to know that that's coming down the pike. The only other thing, if anybody here in this room that would like to participate in Sunday's 81-sentence delivery of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, just let me know. If you got friends that are interested, have them call me, email me, and we will line you up to be a part of Jawbone Park history. That's all I've got. I would entertain a motion that we adjourn. It looks like it's about 8:50, 8:57.
So moved.
The motion by Allbaugh, second by Ryland. Discussion on the motion, no. Call for the question. All those in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.